My hands were numb in the freezing water as I was hand-washing my husband Sebastian's dress shirts to save on electricity. Just this morning, he'd handed me my strict $300 monthly allowance. "We can't afford turning on the heater, Leah," he had sighed, looking at me with feigned pity. "You know I only make a modest salary. We need to sacrifice now for our future wedding. Do you want a beautiful wedding or a warm apartment?" "A beautiful wedding," I had whispered. "Good girl," he had smiled, kissing my cheek. For 7 years, I believed him, until a crumpled receipt fell from his breast pocket. One custom-cut diamond engagement ring, 2.5 carats. Total, $10,000. Paid in full. For exactly 10 seconds, I wept with joy. After years of struggling, he had saved up in secret. He was finally proposing. Then his phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. I walked over to move it, but the screen lit up with a new message notification. The sender wasn't a name. It was just a single red heart emoji. My stomach dropped. Sebastian didn't use a passcode. He always claimed we had complete transparency. I swiped open the notification. It wasn't a text. It was a photo. My world shattered. It was a picture of a woman. She was stunning, wearing a sheer, crimson silk nightgown. But that wasn't what made the bile rise in my throat. She was resting her head against a man's bare chest. A chest with a distinct crescent-shaped birthmark just below the collarbone. Sebastian's chest. And resting on his chest, prominently displayed on the woman's hand, was a ring. A massive, custom-cut diamond. The exact ring from the receipt. Underneath the photo was a caption, "Can't wait for you to come home to me, baby. The ring is perfect. I love you." My legs gave out. I sank onto the closed toilet seat, the phone trembling in my icy hands. Her name was Chloe. I scrolled up slightly. There were hundreds of messages. "Did you buy the ring?" Chloe had asked yesterday. "Of course, baby. $10,000 just like you wanted," Sebastian replied. "Does the maid know?" "Leah? No. She's too busy scrubbing my shirts in the dark to notice anything." "You're so bad. When are you kicking her out?"
"Soon."
"I just need her to finish deep cleaning the apartment so I can get my security deposit back. Then she's gone." The words hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't a partner. I was unpaid labor. I was a joke to them. The shower was still going strong. Sebastian took notoriously long, luxurious showers. I had maybe 10 minutes. Trembling, I ran to the living room. Sebastian's laptop was sitting on the battered coffee table. I flipped it open. I knew his password. I opened his web browser and went straight to his banking portal. The login autofilled. I clicked enter. The screen loaded. The number stared back at me. Checking account, $45,200. Savings account, $120,500. Investment portfolio, $350,000. I blinked, sure I was hallucinating, but the numbers remained. I clicked on his recent direct deposits. His modest salary was a lie. He made over $500,000 a year. He was making 10 times what he had claimed since the day we met. I clicked on his transaction history. My heart hammered against my ribs. The numbers blurred together. $4,000 a month for rent at the Pinnacle Luxury Apartments. $1,200 auto-drafted to Mercedes-Benz Financial. $800 dropped at La Perla Lingerie, and a flat $5,000 transfer sent directly to Chloe Davis. My hands shook as I scrolled further down the ledger. $1,500 at Tiffany & Company. $400 for a single dinner at the French Room. Every line was a stab to the chest. Last week, I had begged him for $40 to buy antibiotics for a severe sinus infection. He had told me to drink hot tea and tough it out because the budget was too tight. The very next day, he had spent $400 on a dinner date. While I was washing his shirts in ice water, he was dining at Michelin star restaurants. While I was shivering in a patched coat, he was funding a luxury apartment and a Mercedes for his mistress. While I was living on a degrading $300 a month, he was transferring thousands to Chloe. He hadn't just cheated on me. He had financially abused me. He had kept me in deliberate, manufactured poverty to control me. He kept me dependent and compliant while he lived a life of extreme wealth with someone else. The sheer scale of the betrayal was so vast, it bypassed sorrow entirely. It went straight to a cold, sharp rage. The sound of the shower shutting off echoed from the bathroom. I closed the browser. I wiped the history. I shut the laptop and placed it exactly where I had found it. I walked back into the bathroom and set his phone down on the counter. I walked back to the plastic basin. I plunged my hands back into the freezing water. The bathroom door creaked open. Steam billowed out, carrying the scent of his expensive body wash. Sebastian stepped out, a towel wrapped around his waist. He looked at me, kneeling on the floor, my hands red and raw in the icy water. A soft, affectionate smile spread across his handsome face. He walked over, crouching down beside me. He pressed a tender kiss to my forehead. "You work so hard for us, Leah," he murmured, his voice thick with fake sincerity. "I know things are tight right now," he continued, brushing a wet strand of hair from my face. "But I appreciate you so much. You're so understanding and frugal." He looked into my eyes, playing the part of the devoted boyfriend flawlessly. "You're going to make the perfect wife," he praised. I looked at the man I had loved for 7 years. The man who was starving me while feeding another woman diamonds. My heart, once full of desperate hope, crystallized into pure, unbreakable ice. I looked him dead in the eyes, and I simply smiled back. "I know," I said softly. 3 days later, Sebastian dropped to one knee in our freezing, cramped living room. He didn't pull out the $10,000 custom-cut diamond I had seen on the receipt. Instead, he opened a cheap, velvet-lined box to reveal a thin, tarnished $50 silver band. "I know things are tight right now, Leah," he said, his voice cracking with a perfectly practiced, tearful tremor. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and earnest. "But my love for you is real. We don't need a fancy wedding to prove it. A simple, bare-bones courthouse ceremony is all we need to start our lives together." I looked at the cheap ring, then at the man who was currently funding a luxury apartment for his mistress. I forced tears to my own eyes, covering my mouth in feigned shock. "It's perfect, Sebastian," I whispered, playing the role of the naive, devoted fiancé flawlessly. "Yes, of course I'll marry you." He smiled, pulling me into a tight embrace, completely unaware of the irony. He thought he was playing me. He didn't know that I was playing a part, too. What Sebastian didn't know was that I wasn't a broke, struggling maid. I was a self-made multimillionaire. Under a carefully guarded pseudonym, I was a highly successful digital artist and a ruthless, anonymous angel investor. My offshore accounts held more money than he claimed to make in a lifetime. For 5 years, I had lived in this freezing, rundown apartment, eating ramen and wearing patched coats, purely to protect his fragile, masculine pride. I thought he was genuinely struggling to make ends meet. My ultimate wedding gift to him was supposed to be the deed to a $3 million mansion and a joint bank account. Now, that money was going to fund his absolute destruction. The very next morning, while Sebastian was at his modest clerk job, I wired $50,000 to the most elite, ruthless private investigator in the city. Within 48 hours, a thick, encrypted dossier landed in my inbox. The truth was more sickening than I could have ever imagined. Sebastian wasn't a struggling clerk. He was Alexander Sebastian Holes, the sole heir to the Holes corporate empire. I read through the legal documents, my blood running cold. His late grandfathers will had a strict, ironclad stipulation to inherit the CEO position and a $1 billion trust fund. Sebastian had to live without family money for 7 years and prove he could maintain a humble, stable relationship. I was a prop to satisfy the board of trustees. For 7 years, He had used my genuine love and my willingness to suffer in poverty to prove to a board of old men that he was grounded. Meanwhile, he was secretly funneling his hidden allowance to Chloe, a high society heiress who was fully in on the charade. That weekend, Sebastian kissed my cheek and told me he had to work a double shift at the office to save up for our courthouse fees. I knew exactly where he was actually going. The second the door closed behind him, I logged into my private accounts. I bought a stunning $10,000 crimson silk designer gown, slipped on a pair of diamond earrings I had kept hidden in a floorboard safe, and hired a private driver. I bypassed the velvet ropes of the city's most exclusive charity gala, blending seamlessly into the world of extreme wealth that Sebastian thought I didn't belong in. I moved through the shadows, avoiding the flashing cameras, until I spotted them. Sebastian was wearing a bespoke tuxedo. Chloe was clinging to his arm, wearing the 2.5-carat diamond ring. I slipped past the security guards and onto a dark, secluded VIP balcony, hiding just out of sight behind a heavy velvet curtain. A moment later, the glass doors opened, and Sebastian and Chloe stepped out into the crisp night air. "Sebastian, I am so sick of this." Chloe's whiny voice drifted through the dark. I peered through the crack in the curtain. She was pouting, sipping from a crystal flute of champagne. "How much longer do you have to keep up this charity case charade with the maid? She's pathetic. I want to wear my ring in public." Sebastian chuckled, pulling Chloe close by the waist. "Relax, baby," he smirked, kissing her neck. "The trust fund clears on the day of the wedding. The second the ink is dry and the board signs off on my inheritance, I'm dumping her." "But what if she makes a scene?" Chloe asked, tracing his jawline. "What if she tries to come after your money?" Sebastian's smile twisted into something truly sociopathic. "She won't. It's easy to keep her in line," he said, his voice dripping with sadistic pride. "You know her mother went crazy and jumped off a roof when she was a kid, right?" My breath caught in my throat. The world stopped spinning. "I just remind her that she's broken," Sebastian continued casually, as if he were discussing the weather. "I tell her I'm the only one who can handle her baggage. Keeping her poor keeps her isolated and dependent. She has no friends, no money, and no self-esteem. She thinks she's lucky to have me. When I leave her at the courthouse, she'll just crawl away quietly and blame herself." I stood in the shadows of the balcony, the crisp night air biting at my bare shoulders. The last, lingering fragment of the girl who had loved him shattered into a million pieces. The grief was gone. The heartbreak was gone. All that was left was pure, cold, unadulterated rage. I didn't burst through the curtains. I didn't scream or throw my drink in his face. That would be too easy. That would be a mercy. I turned around and walked away from the balcony, my designer heels clicking silently against the marble floor. I was going to give him a wedding day he would never, ever forget. To orchestrate my revenge without blowing my cover, I needed a venue that matched the billion-dollar inheritance he was about to steal. I forged an email on my laptop, printing it out on cheap paper to make it look authentic. I ran into our freezing living room, my face flushed, faking tears of absolute hysteria. "Sebastian, look," I gasped, shoving the paper into his hands. "I entered a contest online months ago and forgot about it. I won. Sebastian, I won the Platinum Bridal Sweepstakes." He snatched the paper, his eyes scanning the fake certificate. The prize was an all-expenses-paid luxury wedding at the Rosewood Estate, the most elite, exclusive venue in the state, a place that usually required $1 million deposit and a 2-year waiting list. Sebastian's eyes lit up with a greedy, predatory excitement. He spun me around, laughing loudly, praising my incredible luck. Later that evening, while I pretended to sleep, I watched the glow of his phone screen illuminate the dark bedroom. I knew exactly what he was doing. He was furiously texting Chloe, gloating about how he was getting a high society wedding for absolutely free. It was the perfect setup. He would get the lavish stage he needed for his trust fund to clear, without having to spend a dime of his hidden fortune. In reality, there was no sweepstakes. While Sebastian slept, I was on my encrypted laptop, quietly liquidating $500,000 of my own tech stocks. I wired the funds through a shell corporation directly to the Rosewood estate, paying for the venue, the imported orchids, the crystal chandeliers, and the Michelin star catering in full. The next day, I took charge of the invitations. I sat at our chipped kitchen table, playing the role of the sweet, accommodating bride. Since the package covers 200 guests, we should really invite your extended family, I told him, looking up innocently from my stack of envelopes. Sebastian waved me off dismissively, handing me a hastily scribbled list of fake names and burner addresses. Just invite whoever, Leah. My family is distant. They probably won't even show up. I'll track them down. I promise sweetly. I want everyone to see how much we love each other. And I did track them down. Using the elite private investigator's dossier, I bypassed his fake list entirely. I went straight for the jugular. I ordered heavy, gold embossed invitations and hired a master calligrapher. I addressed the first envelope to the chief executors of his grandfather's estate. The next went to the entire board of trustees of the Hole's corporate empire. Then the senior partners of their family law firm. I even sent invitations to the major shareholders who were voting on his upcoming ascension to CEO. I ensured they were all given VIP RSVPs and seated in the very front row. 3 days before the wedding, the trap was fully set. I just needed the final nail in the coffin. I'm just putting together a photo slideshow for the reception. I called out to Sebastian as he stepped into the bathroom for his shower. The moment the water started running, my demeanor shifted. I bypassed the slideshow software and hacked directly into his synced cloud drive one last time. I needed to download his latest text logs with Chloe to add to my AV presentation. But as the files mirrored onto my hard drive, I noticed an anomaly. A hidden, heavily encrypted folder buried deep in his system files. It took my decryption software 3 minutes to crack it. Inside was a single document, a draft letter. I clicked it open, the harsh blue light of the screen reflecting in my cold eyes. To my son or daughter, the letter began. My breath hitched, but I forced myself to keep reading. I am writing this to you on the eve of my final victory. I can't wait to shed this poverty disguise and finally get rid of my charity case wife. She is a pathetic, broken thing, but she served her purpose. The second the trust clears tomorrow, I'm coming home to you and your mother. I'll finally be a real father, and we'll never have to look at her depressing face again. Tomorrow, I inherit the world, and I will give it all to you. I sat in the silence of the apartment, the sound of the shower drumming in the background. Chloe was pregnant. He was starting a family with his mistress, writing loving letters to his unborn child, while simultaneously referring to me as a depressing face to be discarded the moment he got his billions. I didn't cry. My eyes were bone dry. The night before the wedding, we sat in our rundown apartment for the last time. The heater was still broken. We were eating cheap, lukewarm Chinese takeout out of cardboard boxes. Sebastian reached across the small table and took my hand. He looked deep into my eyes, his expression a flawless, sickening mask of humble devotion. I know these 7 years have been hard, Leah, he whispered, his thumb gently stroking my knuckles. I know I haven't been able to give you much. But your loyalty through our poverty has meant everything to me. You stayed by my side when I had nothing to my rock. I looked around the miserable, ice-cold room I had trapped myself in to protect his pride. I looked at the man who had weaponized my dead mother, stolen my youth, and laughed at my pain to win a trust fund. I smiled. My eyes were dead, reflecting nothing but the cold, black abyss he had pushed me into. I know, I whispered softly, squeezing his hand back. Tomorrow, you're going to get exactly what you deserve. The morning of our wedding, the apartment was just as freezing as it had been for the last 5 years. I stood in front of our cracked bathroom mirror, humming a cheerful tune while I pinned my hair up. I was the picture of a giddy, naive bride who couldn't wait to marry the love of her life at the courthouse. Meanwhile, Sebastian was pacing the cramped living room, his phone glued to his hand. The device vibrated relentlessly against his palm. I knew exactly who was on the other end. Chloe was likely throwing a tantrum, demanding to know exactly what time the trust fund would clear so they could finally pop their hidden champagne. I walked out of the bathroom, my face flushed with perfectly faked excitement. Is everything okay, sweetie? You seem so tense. Sebastian jumped slightly, quickly locking his phone and shoving it into his sweatpants pocket. He forced a tight, reassuring smile. Everything is fine, Leah. Just work, he sighed, running a hand through his hair to play up his exhaustion. The office is in a complete panic without me. My manager keeps texting me about a filing error. I walked over, placing a gentle, understanding hand on his chest. Why don't you go into the office and check on it? I suggested sweetly, my eyes wide and innocent. The ceremony isn't until this afternoon. You have plenty of time to sort out the emergency, and we can just meet there. Sebastian's eyes lit up with relief. Are you sure? He asked, pretending to feel guilty. I hate to leave you alone on our wedding morning. I'm sure, I beamed. Besides, you work so hard for us, and I know how important your job is. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, a smug, triumphant gleam in his eyes. Don't worry, Sebastian promised, grabbing his coat. I also sent invitations to my workmates. They're all going to be there today to support us. I can't wait to meet them, I smiled warmly. I'll see you at the altar, Leah, he said, slipping out the front door. The second the deadbolt clicked shut, my warm smile vanished, replaced by a cold, dead stare. I didn't have much time. I moved through the apartment like a ghost. I didn't touch the cheap thrift store wedding dress hanging on the closet door. I didn't pack the threadbare sweaters or the patched winter coat. I grabbed my encrypted laptop, my digital drawing tablets, and my hardware wallets. I left the tarnished, $50 silver ring sitting perfectly in the center of the chipped kitchen table. 10 minutes later, I walked out of the apartment building and into the freezing morning air. A sleek, black Rolls-Royce Phantom was idling silently at the curb. The rear door swung open, and an older gentleman in an immaculate tailored suit stepped out, bowing his head slightly. Good morning, Miss Leah. My butler, Thomas, greeted me, his voice smooth and professional. Is the luggage secured? Everything that matters is in this bag, Thomas, I replied, sliding into the heated, butter-soft leather seats of the luxury car. Very good, ma'am. To the airport. Not yet, I said, opening my laptop. Give me 5 minutes. I pulled out my phone and dialed the private concierge number for the Rosewood Estate. The manager picked up on the first ring. Good morning, this is the Rosewood Estate. How may I? This is the bride, I interrupted, my voice sharp and authoritative. Cancel it. Cancel the Michelin star catering. Cancel the string quartet. Send the imported orchids to the local children's hospital. Mom? Cancel the wedding, the manager stammered, clearly shocked. But the venue is fully paid for, and the guests are scheduled to arrive in just a few hours. Keep the money. Consider it a generous tip, I replied coldly. But lock the grand iron gates at the front of the estate. Do not let a single person onto the property today. The wedding is off. I hung up before he could argue. Next, I opened my encrypted email server. I had the contact list I had meticulously compiled from the private investigator's dossier, the chief executors, the family law partners, the major shareholders, and the entire board of trustees. The very people Sebastian had invited to witness his humble triumph. I attached the high-resolution photo of Chloe in the crimson lingerie, her hand resting on his chest, flaunting the $10,000 diamond ring. I attached the bank statements proving his hidden wealth. And finally, I attached the audio file of him mocking the morality clause of his grandfather's will. Subject: wedding cancellation and trust fund fraud. Dear esteemed board members and executors, Please be advised that today's wedding at the Rosewood Estate has been permanently canceled. Alexander Sebastian Holes has failed the stipulations of his inheritance. Attached is the evidence of his hidden assets, his ongoing affair, and his deliberate intent to defraud the Holes estate. Best regards, the maid. I hit send. An hour before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, my cheap burner phone buzzed in my purse. I cleared my throat, instantly slipping back into my pathetic, naive persona, and answered the call. Leah, baby, I'm so sorry, Sebastian said. This filing error at the office is a total disaster. I'm going to be late. Late, I whimpered, forcing a panicked, high-pitched tremble into my voice. Just a little bit, don't panic, he said smoothly. Why don't you just go ahead and find the coordinator? You can register the marriage license and do the paperwork first, so we're legally set when I get there. But Sebastian, what about the guests? I cried, squeezing my eyes shut to make my voice sound genuinely tearful. The sweepstakes coordinator at the Rosewood Estate said everyone is arriving. Your workmates, what will I tell them? We can't just leave them waiting at the altar. Before he could answer, a muffled, distinctly female voice echoed in the background of his call. Babe, the photographer is here. Does my hair look okay? Sebastian quickly covered the receiver. I heard a muffled shuffling sound before he came back on the line. I said don't worry about the guests. Leah will handle them, he snapped before softening his voice back to a fake loving hum. Just wait for me, okay? Get the paperwork started so we can finally be married. Sure, Sebastian, I whispered softly. I'll be right here waiting. I hung up the phone. Without a second thought, I dropped the cheap plastic device into my glass of sparkling water, watching the screen short out and die in a stream of tiny bubbles.